got it all messed up here. It won't let me go. All right. How are we? Okay, so today we are reading from Bhagavad Gita, and this is still chapter 12, and we're coming to the conclusion of chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita. And it's a really interesting part where Krishna has been talking about the different kinds of paths that there are. Up till now we had talked about karma yoga, raja yoga, different kinds of systems. You have to realize the tradition goes way back, all the way from the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Sama Veda, the Atharva Veda. So all the different Vedas, and then they come to a point of the Upanishads. And the Upanishads, they start to talk about different systems. They start describing the philosophy of the Vedic spirituality. Earlier they had the hymns of the Rig Vedas, they'd had the rituals. But finally we come to the part where they start describing the philosophy. And you know how it is with philosophy, it can sometimes be a little dry. So there are a lot of, they start moving towards the stories. So the philosophies were referred to as Shruti. Shruti is that which is heard. And that which is heard can be two ways. One is it is heard from within, and that is a quality of being able to hear one's inner voice or one's inner guidance. Now, just as we have a mind that talks to us and tells us all kinds of things, this same channel, call it like you have a TV, and a TV has many different apps or channels depending on what you're using. If you're using broadcast TV, then you'll have channels, and if you're using smart TV in today's time, you'll probably have different apps over there. But just as there are many things that can access that TV, right? Similarly, there are many voices that can access your mind. Okay, so if you think of it as a radio, I think a TV is a better thing because this also has a visual aspect to it with your imagination. It's not just audio, so it has that aspect there with your imagination, your visualization, your creativity. It's all in there, as well as the sound factor. So now there are many channels that can access it. One channel is, of course, your mind itself. It's thinking, it's processing, it's analyzing, all of that. Then there are different energies and entities that I've personally come across that also try to access that, often in a very detrimental way, trying to create havoc within your person's mind and trying to create chaos, confusion, fear, anxiety, low self-esteem, put you down in many ways. And finally, there is the voices of when you learn to quiet your mind, then you're able to hear Shruti, the divine sounds, the sounds of guidance from that higher power, call it God. Some people think it's angels, some people think it's some masters or someone speaking to you. I just refer to it as God because I don't know about any other entities and creatures out there in the non-physical world that might try to communicate with you. So I don't know. I just stick to whatever is to calling on God. And that voice can speak to you with immense wisdom and guidance. Now, much of the Vedas it's not like somebody sat, and like they were spoken from within to rishis, to great saintly people. Rishi is one who has seen or experienced God. There was a direct experience of God. So such a person is now situated in transcendence, and we're going to read what are the qualities of such a person who is able to receive the wisdom of God. That information is recorded first in the Upanishads, And then, of course, there was Smriti, because they also realized that people cannot remember. I mean, they cannot sit through a lengthy philosophical treatise, or lengthy descriptions of the abstractions, because how do you describe the divine? How do you describe something that is undescribable? How do you describe the infinite? Right? So much of the Upanishads were written in very poetic form. And it is only through poetry that they try to capture that higher truth. However, not everybody can sit through poetry, as you see in today's time. Maybe if you can sing it as a song, it might have some value. People can sit through that. But the way people could sit before, perhaps 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and sit down and listen to poetic recitations, we seem to have lost the patience for that. So today, back then, they already envisaged that this would be the case. And so they had Smriti. Smriti was the recollection of the stories of the different great personalities and how they lived and what they went through, the obstacles they faced, the kind of challenges they experienced, and how they dealt with that. And those are there as inspiration for us, because very often we think, oh, the challenges I'm facing, nobody could go through this. Oh, these people, they're just too evolved, or this or that, and they would never be able to deal with what I'm going through. My challenges are somehow uniquely spectacular and difficult, and so on. And so what the Smriti tries to do is try to show you through different stories of these people who received actually greater challenges than most of us do, that how they overcame that. So therefore the Vedas are also full of Puranas. The Puranas then describe these different narratives, these stories. They're stories of people and beings who lived in different times, perhaps in different places even, we don't know. And all of this was through the highly evolved beings who were presenting all this information for us to be able to read it hundreds, maybe thousands of years later. And it was passed down by oral tradition and then finally recorded in writing about 5,000 years ago by Vedavyas. So also at that time, Vedavyas wrote down about the Mahabharata which was taking place. And along with the Mahabharata, he wrote down about the Bhagavad Gita, which was part of that. This same Bhagavad Gita, which we are now reading from, is considered the sar, or the essence of all the Vedas. It is considered, if you would take all the Upanishads and you would take all the Vedas, and if you would then boil it down to its essence, like one book that says it all, you would find that in the Bhagavad Gita. And that is why the Bhagavad Gita is so extremely important for anyone who is a genuine spiritual seeker. So I want this to be as interactive as you like. So if you have questions as we go along, feel free to ask. So we're at the part today or on the 12th chapter, where Arjun has been asking Krishna, which path is better? So we've gone through all the different kinds of yoga systems and so on. Finally, we've landed on two of the most important that are required for self-realization. And that is the path of what is now popularly called Vedanta and the path of Bhakti. Vedanta is the non-dual understanding of God, that God is Advaita, or God is like we are one with God. The idea that we are there is no duality, beyond duality, non-duality. Advaita means where there is no duality, right? There is no us and them. There is no me and God. There is just a oneness, right? And that is the path of Advaita. And it is mostly taught as Vedanta, which many consider to be the more superior path, because it is considered highly intellectual, and it is considered free of ritual and free of many of the practices that you find in Bhakti. So many of the followers of Advaita or Vedanta will look on the path of devotion or bhakti as being somehow an inferior path, because people worship in temples, they ring bells, they have deities, they make all kinds of offerings. They worship a personal God. They think that God can be a person. And in Vedanta, they feel this is quite impossible or unnecessary, because after all, the God is infinite. And how can the infinite be in a finite form? So these are the arguments often presented by the followers of Vedanta or Advaita philosophy. Bhakti, on the other hand, is about the relationship with God, about having a loving relationship, a devotional, loving relationship with God. In this, one envisages God as a being, a delightful, wonderful being with whom one can have a relationship, as you see in the form of Krishna. So Arjuna is asking, which of these paths is better? Is one superior to the other? Is one going to bring you to God sooner? What is the best way to go about spirituality? You see, Arjuna doesn't come from an idea that he knows. He comes from the idea that he doesn't know. And therefore, with all humility, he is asking Krishna, which path is better? It is said that one should approach a guru or a spiritual master with all humility, putting aside everything one knows, putting aside all of one's preconceived notions, and listen with an open mind. So that is what Arjuna is doing. And Krishna replies to him saying, both paths will lead you there. But on the path of Advaita, you will have to do it yourself. So the way he describes it is this. I'm now going to summarize a little bit of what we talked about last time. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifest, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. Now you might think maybe somebody translated this wrong, because lots of folks say, no, this is the right way to go. But Krishna is saying something very interesting out here, and we'll read the actual Sanskrit to see if we can find. Klesho dhikkataras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukham dehavadbir avapyate. For those of you that know even a little bit of Hindi, you will know gati means path and dukham means with a lot of suffering, a lot of trouble. And avyakta means unmanifest. Avyakta hi gatir dukham. For whom dehavadbir avapyate. For one who is in a deha, in a body. For one who has a human body, the path of the avyakta, the unmanifest, is gatir dukham, a path full of many difficulties and challenges. I'm going to keep you muted, Somesh. Yeah. Okay. So this is right out of the Gita. This is something any person who has even a little knowledge of Hindi can appreciate. He's not saying this out of some bias. He's not saying this for any other reason, but he has very specific logic behind this. He continues in the same chapter, text numbers 6 and 7. But one who worships me, giving up all their activities unto me, sarvani karmani, Mai sannyasa matparaha. Being devoted to me without deviation. One who worships me, giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in bhakti. Ananya naiva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate. Mam means me. Mam does not mean anybody. It means me, Krishna, the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. Mam dhyayanta. Dhyan is meditation. Upasate, worship. So one who meditates on me and worships me, right, giving all his or her activities unto me, what happens? Tesham aham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavamnina chirat partha mai aveshita chetasam. You understand this with your knowledge of Hindi again. Those of you that are from India, you'll know mrityu samsara sagarat. He says, for one who worships me, giving up all his activities unto me, being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in bhakti and always meditating upon me, having fixed their mind on me, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Mrityu samsara sagara. This world is referred to as samsar, the place of birth and death. This ocean of birth and death, it is compared to that. And he says, I pick you up from here. I deliver you from here. Right? Tesham aham samudharta. Aham again refers to I. I rescue this person. I pull up this person. So it is not a question of easy or difficult. It is not a question of inferior or superior. The human mind tends to go there. The human mind tends to think in terms of inferior and superior, better and worse. Krishna is talking about efficacy. What works better? Right? What is more effective? If your goal is to get out of the cycle of birth and death, if your goal is to be able to go out of this worldly existence, then you will find that this is the most beneficial way to do so. Okay? So, right. So now let's continue with where we left off last time. We were on text number 13. Chapter 12, text number 13. So here Krishna is describing the signs of a evolved being. This is the goal. This is where we need to come to. This is what we are capable of. And these are the symptoms that we achieve upon being able to come to a place of, call it self-realization, call it awakening, call it enlightenment, call it what you will. Okay. So what he says next is, one who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor. Let's go over each of these points, okay? Who is not envious. What kind of person would you be if you were not envious? Like, what are much of your goals and other things based on? Is it based on being better than others? Is it based on what do you base your what you want in life? What do you base it on? How do you know what you want in life? Is it based upon just simply what you thought, or is it that you looked around and you said, hey, I want to be like this person. I want to have this. I want to achieve that. Right? If you'll understand that all of us have been influenced by looking at those around us, and thereby we have come to some idea of what we want to have or be or do in this life. Right? So based on that, if you start to think about it, you'll realize that we are all, I seem to be getting this thrown off out here. We all have these ideas of what we want to be, but what is that from? a sense of comparison. I want to be like this person. So one who is not envious, who is not based their life upon what they want to be like another person. So one who is not envious, who is a kind friend to all living entities. What kind of person is a kind friend to all living entities? Do you realize what that means? That you actually consider every person as important. That you're actually compassionate and loving towards each and every one. When you actually operate on that level, you begin to understand that compassion and kindness is one of the most important virtues that you're going to have. Because the truth and the reality is that every one of us is fallible. Every one of us will make mistakes. Every one of us is foolish. Every one of us. And every one of us deserves the kindness of the other. And it's not just the human beings. It's also the animals. It's also all creatures. All creatures. All creatures deserve our compassion. And when we begin to see that, we realize that that only in being able to love each other, care for each other, are we able to get to a place of true spiritual growth. Okay? Does anyone have any questions so far? Any of you want to know something further?
No, I'm good. I'm actually getting so much knowledge that I had a lot of questions in my mind. So some of them are getting answered. So for example, what is Gita, right? So in other traditions, right, there is just one book which you had touched base upon last time.
Right.
So do we have one such book? Yes, it is Gita now. Now I know that it is a sar.
Yes.
Extract of Upanishads and Vedas. I knew it, but it was hidden somewhere in my subconscious mind. Now it has come to surface. And
wonderful.
It's helping me because today I needed. I'm going through some emotional commotions right now. So I needed to know that this is all my, let's say in science terms, subconscious mind doing all of this, and I really do not need to be worried so much about it. So when you say it is smriti and you touch base upon a few things, it made me, it sort of grounded me,
Thank you. That's good.
And I needed to know that.
Let me give you one more thing to ground yourself even further.
Thank you, sir.
Keep in mind, if you are going through something emotional, then it's not always about something intellectual. It is also about being able to work with your emotions and your thoughts.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So, one of the biggest things that affects our emotions is our thoughts.
Is what?
Our thoughts. And most of the time, we do not actually challenge our thoughts. We do not actually question, are my thoughts actually correct or not? Are my thoughts actually the truth or not? Because most of the time they go unexamined. So I may think, for example, somebody doesn't like me or somebody is upset with me. But that may be just my thinking. They may not have said anything. On the other hand, they may have been upset with me for a minute, but the next minute they are no longer upset. I am still holding on to that.
Right.
So the question really is, we need to be able to gather evidence to see that what I'm thinking, is that accurate or not? 9 out of 10 times it is not accurate. And therefore the emotions that have arisen from our thoughts are actually based on something that was in fact not true.
Correct. So this is in terms of the vibes with others. But sometimes you yourself feel that you are in trouble, or your health is in trouble, or your existence.
But is it based on fact? Or is it based upon speculation? Is it based upon something your mind has made up?
Probably mind has made up because it results in physical manifestations, right? So
right? So you can have physical manifestation. See, what will happen is this: there are three things. There is thought. From thought, you will get emotion. From emotion, it will go into physical manifestation. If you can nip it at the bud, if you can catch it at the beginning, at the source, at the root, that is at the level of thought, then what will happen is you will no longer have that emotion that you were having, and you will therefore no longer have the reaction you were having.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay? This is one way. The second way is that when you are having an emotion, right, to learn to soothe yourself. If you are upset, if you are angry, to be able to talk to yourself in a loving way and tell yourself it's okay, just like you talk to a child, just like you talk to a person who is upset. You listen to them and you soothe them. So you can do that for yourself, right?
Right.
Listen very patiently. What is it that my mind is upset about? Okay, what are you upset about? You talk to yourself. And then very lovingly you soothe your own mind, saying it's okay, we've got this, all this will pass.
Right.
But like that. So there is a soothing. Maybe you want to hold yourself, maybe you want to touch yourself, right? But in some way you can soothe your mind and your emotions from what they are feeling. Okay,
Right.
so these are just a few tips. Let's get back to what we were reading.
No, but this is very helpful.
And one more point based on the Gita. He says one is a kind friend to all living entities. Now remember, amongst all living entities, there is you as well. You are one of those living entities, right? And if one is going to be a kind friend to all living entities, then one should be a kind friend to oneself also. Okay?
That is missing from missing.
So if you are hard on yourself, if you are very, if you are a big, strong taskmaster with yourself, if you are very critical of yourself, then stop that. Become a kind friend to yourself. And that will make a big difference in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I remember doing this for myself, where I, used, like everybody else, I used to be very judgmental and critical and hard on myself. And one day I read a line which was actually out of the Bible, and it said, "Judge not lest you be judged." And I did not like being judged and criticized. I had had a lot of that in my years of growing up in school and so on, and even amongst friends, because I was different than they were. And as a result of which, when I heard this line, I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this my motto. I will not judge myself. Judge not, lest you be judged.
Judge not, rest.
Lest, L-E-S-T, Old English.
Rest not.
No, there's no rest here.
I'm sorry.
Judge not, lest.
Judge not, lest you be judged.
Yes. No.
Not lest you be judged. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're judging others, then they will judge you. And if you are judging, if in the same way, you do not want to be judging yourself. So this is the same point here in the Gita. Be a kind friend unto all living entities, including yourself.
Correct.
Right?
That has been missing in my life.
So be developing self-compassion. Developing a kindness towards oneself, a forgiveness of one's mistakes, the ability to be able to say to yourself, I forgive you. It's okay, you messed up. We all mess up. There's nothing new about that. That every human being messes up. There is none of us here that is perfect, including me and you and all of us. Right? So we are all fallible. The only infallible is God.
Yeah.
Right? Krishna is sometimes referred to as, oh, infallible one. So he is infallible, but we are not. So let us not try to make that presumption that we can be infallible.
Right.
Okay? Therefore, we are deserving of our own kindness and our own compassion.
Okay.
Got it? All right.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. One who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego. Now this is very, very important. There is a statement you'll find in spirit amongst spiritual teachers in India that the cause of most of our suffering comes from the word mine, and they say in Hindi "main." And sometimes they compare this to a goat that goes meh. So the point is that we are all subject to. We think that this is my property, this is my child, this is my husband, wife, whatever relationships you have, right? And we think therefore that this thing must do as I want it to do or as I think it should do. So whether this thing is a car, then it should do what I want it to do, or whether it is my child, or whether it is my husband, wife, whatever, right? I want it to do what I think it should do. And then we get upset. We are all subject to this. I am subject to this. You are subject to this. We are all subject to this. What does it mean? I think that the world should revolve around my thinking. And this is the huge mistake we all make. The world does not revolve around my thinking. The world will never revolve around my thinking. The world, people will not behave the way I want them to behave. No matter that I get upset or no matter that I get angry, that is my foolishness. That is my error in judgment, to think that other people should behave the way I think they should behave. I can always make a request. That's fine. But I cannot control the outcome of that. I cannot, my getting upset that somebody did not behave the way I think they should behave, that is my fault. That is my bad. I am I can request always, there is never a problem. But my expectation that they should behave as I think they should behave, and therefore I have somehow a right to be upset with them or angry with them or mad at them or to hold on to a grudge with them, that is not my domain. Nobody needs to do what I want them to do or behave the way I want them to behave. Right? So that is where there is a sense of proprietorship. You will do this only with the people who are very close to you. You will not do it with a neighbor. You will not do it with a friend, or maybe even other people. You're driving on the street and you will think, oh, why is this person not doing this or that? Right? Why is this person not turning on the signal? Or why is this person, driving in this way? Or why is that person in the queue, jumping the queue? Whatever. We are wanting to control the world and make everything go the way we think it should. But the one thing we have to all understand is this: we have no control over this world. We have no control over others. We have no control even over our thoughts or our heartbeat or our breath. So what we need to cultivate is in fact a deep sense of humility and surrender. Now I share this with you not by saying I am above this or beyond this. No, I myself struggle with this. And I want you to know this is the struggle of every human being. As long as you have a body, a human body and a human mind, we will all struggle with this. Okay? So it is not something that anybody is exempt from. If one is honest, this will be the fact. If one is trying to put on some image, then in that case, yes, people put on all kinds of image. But I think it is better that we take accountability of our own weaknesses and our own flaws, right? And then we are in a better position to make a change.
Right.
So, Krishna continues, one who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled and engaged in bhakti with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. Now let's go to the first part. One who is equal in both happiness and distress. How can you be equal in happiness and distress? This is a very difficult thing.
Right.
When the ego functions on a particular model, when you get what you want, you are happy. And when you don't get what you want, when things don't go the way you think they should, then you are unhappy. Right? But who made that up? The mind. The mind made up the idea of what it wants. The mind made up the idea of what it doesn't want. And now, accordingly, everything has to work around that, as if I am the god of this world. and, and if things don't happen my way, I am the king, I am the ruler. And if things don't happen the way I want, well, then I shall be upset. And if things happen the way I want, then I am pleased. There's something very vain and arrogant about that. The reality is that things will happen as they happen. Some things will happen the way you like, some things will not happen the way you like. One has to learn to be okay with that. When Krishna starts off the Gita with this, that happiness and distress are like winter and summer seasons. They have their appearance and their disappearance in due course of time, and one should learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. You see, happiness and distress are like winter and summer seasons. Can you change the winter and summer seasons? Can you say, oh no, I don't want the winter to come right now. I still want the summer to continue. Or I don't want the summer to come, I want the winter to continue, which are depending on which part of the world you live in. Right? If you live in America, you love the summer. If you live in India, then you want the winter. So depending on which part of the world you live in, you may want things to be different than they are. Right. But the difficulty is you are trying to change that which cannot be changed. So the answer is acceptance. To accept life as it is. To accept yourself as you are. To accept people as they are. And when we do that, then we stop fighting with the world. We stop struggling with the world. We stop going through all the tension and stress and anxiety that we are experiencing. Simply by one act. I accept life as it is. Does it mean that I should not do anything? No, absolutely not. Does it mean that I should not make any changes? Absolutely try. But don't expect things to go the way you want. Do your best, like Krishna says in the Gita. Do your best and then leave it to Him. If it has to change, it will change. If it has to be better, it will be better. If not, stop thinking in terms of better and worse. That is duality. Ichha dvesha samudhena dvand mohena bharata. This dvand, this duality, this is the cause of our suffering. But if you neither look at things as good or bad, see, good and bad is perceived by the mind. But if you go into a place of silence and breathe and come into your body, in this place of silence, when you are breathing, there is no good and bad. Good and bad happens when you think. So instead of thinking, breathe. Come into your body, and you will notice in that moment right away, there is no good or bad anymore. There is no right and wrong anymore. There is just life that is happening. There is just the reality that is occurring. Right? And whether you like it or not, it's still occurring. There's nothing you can do about it. Right? So, it's important that we understand how to get to this place where one is equal in both happiness and distress. So when a person is tolerant, always satisfied, self-control and self-controlled. So how to be tolerant, satisfied and self-controlled? Once again, the answer is to learn step by step, day by day, how to stop being controlled by your mind. In fact, what is happening is we are trying to control the world, but it is the mind that is controlling us. We are the ones being controlled. We think that we are free and we are somehow trying to make, achieve things and do things and so on. No, your mind is controlling you at all times. Your mind is the one who's in charge. Your mind has been the boss of you since the day one. Freedom from the mind's control is called liberation, moksha. That of course, that is referring to the long term. Real moksha is liberation long term, not only from the mind, but also from the effects of this world and also from the cycle of birth and death. But it starts here. It starts here, becoming free from the control of your mind. How do you become free from the control of your mind? Very simple. You might say, no, it is difficult because there is a habit, there is an addiction. to the mind and to believing it. That addiction is more difficult to break than it is to break a heroin addiction. You know how much difficulty people have with that. So that drug is so difficult to break, not because you're somehow less competent. I mean, whoever the person is, not because the person is less competent, but it is because the drug has taken hold. So the mind has taken hold of us, and to become free from it, the difficulty is that we have been doing it for so long, that we have been listening to it for so long. Now, if you start the process day after day, moment after moment, challenging what it tells you, standing up to it when it tries to bully you, doubting it when it tries to doubt you, breaking it, just as you would someone who you know, because it doesn't know what it's talking about. It doesn't know the nature of reality. It does not know the truth about you and others and about the world. It really does not know. So if you start the process of challenging your mind on a day-to-day basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, you will find yourself becoming more and more and more free from its control and its clutches. And as you become free, as you practice this process of freedom, what you will find is that you will become more and more accepting of life as it is, and therefore more tolerant. You will also find yourself more satisfied instead of being dissatisfied. And you will find yourself more self-controlled. All the things that Krishna is talking about here. Then he goes on to say, he by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. So now, when this freedom from the mind happens, you will find something very interesting also happening. No one is put into difficulty. And this person is not disturbed by anyone. There's an interesting story of Buddha where he was being insulted by a person who had come to listen to him. He was giving a talk amongst all his disciples, and this man had come to listen to him. And when seeing this huge following of people who was so captivated by Buddha, he became very outraged, and he started yelling and cursing and abusing Buddha. For an hour he went on, and then I got tired after some time and he left. After he left, Buddha's disciple Ananda asked him, he says, Master, how is it that this man was yelling and abusing you and speaking so unkindly? We were getting so upset. How is it that you were not disturbed? How is it possible? And Buddha says to him, when a person gives you a gift, but you do not take it, then who does the gift belong to? Let me explain that, ask you that again. When a person gives you a gift, but you do not take it. So let's say a person gives you some insults. Let's start simple. They give you an actual gift, physical gift, right? But you don't take that physical gift. So now who does the gift belong to? Since you didn't take it, it goes back to that person, right? Yeah. So similarly, if they give you some abuses, they give you some, they speak harshly to you, they say unkind words to you, they are nasty with you, but you do not take it. You do not take it to heart. You do not take it as fact. You do not take it into your being, into your consciousness. Then who does that belong to? It still belongs to that person. What they have done, what they have given, if you did not take it, it is still theirs. If you take it, now you have made it yours. So when you get upset at someone else, check and see. When somebody speaks unkindly to you, when someone is critical of you, when someone is harsh with you, did you take their words to heart? And if you did, that's your doing. That's your doing. Because otherwise it belongs to the person who spoke that way, right? It belongs to you only because now you're taking it, because you're making it personal. Because maybe you're even believing what they're saying, because maybe that's how you talk to yourself, and maybe you think this is normal. But it is not normal. It is not normal. When we are unkind with another or unkind with ourselves, that is not normal. That is not the way of a kind and compassionate existence. I'm not saying we don't do it. We all do it. And yet, it needs to be stopped. It needs to be corrected. But it needs to be corrected with compassion and kindness towards ourselves, and compassion and kindness towards the person who has engaged in such an act. It is very important that we understand these things, because none of us is free of this. And we must all work on stopping this self-judgment or judgment of others, and practice loving kindness towards ourselves and towards each other. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. So now he's pointing out some very important criteria, again, that we can aspire for. These are all aspirational qualities. But the good news is this: those qualities already exist within us. They are the very nature of who we are, the very nature of our soul. So it is not that they are far away. What is coming in the way is our mind. When my mind gets irritated or angry or upset, it is my mind that is doing that. Why is it getting irritated and angry and upset? Either it's not able to cope with something, or it has a different idea of what things should be, or whatever it is, but it is all here. This is the cause of the problem. And so I need to learn how to tame it. I need to learn how to lovingly stop my mind from going in that direction. So then I can arrive at the place where I am equipoised. I am not disturbed by anyone. This is the challenge for me. This is the challenge for you. This is the challenge for all of us. To not be disturbed by anyone or anything. That is what equipoised means. You are equal no matter what happens. No matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone does, no matter what goes on in your life, no matter what situations arise, no matter what circumstances occur, you are equal in both happiness and distress. Who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety. These are, as a therapist, I come across this a lot. Fear and anxiety. Much of our mental anguish comes from fear and anxiety. And fear and anxiety are a product of something that is not real. Anxiety is about foreseeing, the anxiety about the future, but the future has not happened. And fear is based upon something I have usually imagined. Someone broke up the fear as an acronym and said, false evidence appearing real. That's why I said, challenge your mind. You will find that most of its fears and most of its anxiety is false. False evidence appearing real. It appears to be real, but in fact, it is not.
Yeah, I like that full form of fear. I think I had heard it a couple of weeks ago somewhere.
What is that?
FEAR.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I've heard it a long time back. It has been around a while.
Yeah.
One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things. Such a person is very dear to me. Now keep in mind, Krishna is giving us aspiration. We all need aspiration. We think of aspiration as being, oh, let me get, my aspiration is to have a big house, to have $1 million or multi-million or whatever it might be. My aspiration is to have a better job and a better lifestyle and so on. He says, no, this stuff will never last. This stuff is not going to make you happy. These things that you are aspiring for will not fulfill you and will not give you happiness. They will not give you what you're looking for. What will make you happy is these qualities that Krishna is describing here. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things. Such a person is very dear to me. One who is equal to friends and enemies. See, you notice everywhere the same theme is there. Who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, who is engaged in devotion. Such a person is very dear to me. All of this, if you look at it, it comes down to one thing, and that is being satisfied with who you are. The reason we are not satisfied is because we are not looking at who we are, we are looking at what is outside in the world. And the things of the world cannot and will not and do not satisfy us. I'm not saying we don't need them. We can use them. We can have them. There's no problem. Have them. Use them. But don't let them use you. Don't let them drive you. Don't make them the purpose for your existence or your living. Don't make them the aspiration that you have. Aspire instead to develop these qualities. These qualities that Krishna is talking about are born out of, and he gives the answer right there. Where do you get these qualities from? They are born out of silence. There's one word. They're born out of silence. What silence? Mental silence. When the mind is quiet, then you will find yourself satisfied. Everything you ever wanted, you will find within you. The mind is what was blocking the real you. When you find the real you, you will find everything you were looking for. And therefore, there is a sense of satisfaction. Therefore, there is a sense of peace. And therefore, one is equipoised in the face of honor and dishonor, heat and cold. But partly, I would say, even if one has practiced that, if one has meditated and one has attained that place of silence, still it takes practice, testing yourself in various situations. And this world was designed to test us. It was designed that you can't just say tomorrow, oh, no, I am enlightened, I am a great being. Sorry, the world is there to test you. Let's see what you can actually do. And the truth of the matter is, you will fail again and again. The truth is that we all fail again and again and again. But just as we would not tell a child, when a child is learning to walk and the child gets up and he falls down, and then we would not say to the child, oh, what is this? You're such a stupid child. Right? I'm talking about a 1-year-old who's learning to walk. Right? We would not tell that child, you're so stupid. You'll never learn to walk. Just forget about trying even. You're just a loser. You're a failure. Right? Just forget about it. Right? No, instead, every time the child manages to stand up or even tries to stand up, we clap for the child and say, oh my God, yay, you were able to stand up. And we encourage the child. And little by little by little, as the child stands up and falls down and stands up and falls down and stands up and falls down, gradually that child develops the muscle to be able to stand on their own feet. And after that, there's no going back, of course. And it's the same thing that happened to us when we learned to ride a bicycle. And the same thing that happened to us when we learned to use roller skates or swim or anything like that. Right? So these are all skills. And likewise, what Krishna is describing is also a skill. It is born out of silence. That's where you will get the strength, from this inner space that lies within you, your soul. From there you will find, because that is capable of all the things that he is talking about. However, you are not just a soul, you are not just a body-mind. You are a soul within a body-mind. Now you will have to train this body-mind organism that you live in to be able to manifest the qualities of the soul. The soul is by nature equipoised. The soul is by nature doesn't care whether it's heat or cold, rich or poor. It doesn't care about these things. It's not interested, right? It doesn't make a difference. When you go within, you will see for yourself. The soul doesn't care. So now, your mind cares. You will have to train this mind to operate the way the soul does. And that is the abhyas, the practice that it will take over the course of this life. Your first step is to learn to meditate and to quiet the mind. Your second step is the part that you have experienced within you now, that inner peace, that inner joy, that inner contentment, to bring that out and train your mind in the ways of the soul. That is the lifelong challenge. So it's not something, and that's the practical challenge. In the meditation you can do 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever you do. But that is not going to be complete unless you take what you have learned from within and you now start to live from that place. That is the work. And that is the work that for all of us. That is the work that will cause us to become totally free. And that practice is what this life is all about. And then Krishna concludes the 12th chapter saying, those who follow this imperishable path and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So, are there any questions? Do any of you have anything you'd like to ask?
Yeah, so maybe not a question, just blabber, right?
Blabber.
When Krishna says you should be equipoised, right?
Yes.
Omniscient, and you should have these qualities.
Not omniscient, huh? Not omniscient.
Okay, sorry. Omnipresent. Okay. Anyway,
no omnis.
Sthita pragya, right? Sthita pragya.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Anyway, so I don't want to show my vocabulary to you. It's very limited. The thing is, I was like, in a funny way, I was like, is Krishna talking about himself? I'm not that. How do I get there? Then you said silence, right? So, my, again, part of my blabber would be, so you keep silence, and in that silence, do you keep watching your mind, observing your mind, or talking to your mind? How do you, what do you do in the silence?
That's a brilliant question. Thank you. That is truly, truly well thought, and this is certainly no blabber.
Oh, thank you.
So, when you are watching, when you are silent, meaning your mind is silent. That's the actual meaning. And when your mind is silent, you're not what you're, or even as you go within, you're able to observe. Even if your mind is not initially silent, you're able to observe it. And as you observe it, you will notice that it is going all over the place, right? As you continue watching it, you will, and if you do not fall for it, you do not get caught up in it. So it will throw a bunch of things at you. Do you get caught in that or not? That is going to be your challenge, right? Like a fish in the water, you put a bait in front of it, right? And then it goes and it bites that bait, and now it is stuck, right? And now the fisherman will pull it out of the water. In the same way, your mind will try to bait you. And it will try to give you various things to hook you. If you get hooked, then you'll be pulled out of that silence. Right? Now you will start thinking again. So we all can meditate, and we can all have a quiet mind for a few seconds. But within those few seconds, right there, the mind will start coming in somewhere to try to hook you. But we have to do this thing, or this happened, or that happened, or it'll try to remember something, or it will try to talk about something in the future, and it will hook you. Hook you like a fisherman hooks a fish and pulls it out of the water. And the poor fish comes out dying and suffocating. Right? In the same way, we will go from what was a quiet mind for a few seconds out again and into a place of perplexity and turmoil and confusion. Instead, if you tell your mind, not right now, I am busy. Whatever you want to say to me, I will deal with it later. Thank you so much. Not right now. Command it. Command it with authority. Not as a request, not a request. Nor should you be nor should you be angry at that time. Just command it. Not right now. Very firmly. Command it. I will talk to you later. And then continue being in your silence. So then you will find that the mind actually starts to get disciplined and trained. Now, in that place of silence, as you observe it, there is nothing going on. And what you are observing, you can open your eyes at that time and you can observe the world around you, and you will notice that you are actually in that place of equanimity. You are neither liking what is going on nor disliking what is going on. You are neither liking this person nor that person. You are just observing. There is no analysis taking place within your mind. There is no interpretation taking place. There is no meaning being made of anything. And that is the place we want to be.
Yeah.
All right. We have, it's 8:10 now. We need to wind up. But anybody else would like to ask something? Somesh, thank you so much for your lovely questions. I really appreciated having you there.
No, and thank you very much. Today's session was immensely helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. Rima, Swati, Tia, anybody else would like to ask something before I wind up? I've got time for maybe one or maybe two questions. Depends on how much.
I'm good. Thanks, Rohit.
Thank you, Rima. Thanks for being here. Swati,
Thanks, Rohit.
Tia.
Thank you, Rohit. No specific questions from my side either.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Next week we'll start with chapter 13. That is a rather difficult chapter. So I hope you will come with a lot of energy and freshness to be able to hear it. But it is actually a very philosophical and very deep chapter. So we'll get into that next week. All right. Take care, guys. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Good evening.
Bye. Good evening.
Rohit ji, do you have a minute?